Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications at the CW. Delighted once again to be joined by our Deputy General Secretary, Postal, Terry Pullinger. Afternoon, Terry.
Hi, Chris. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, so what we're going to do today with Terry is do a bit of an interview and go through some of the things that we've seen you raising through our various channels. Obviously, I'm hoping that Terry's got loads of information for us, loads of updates. It's been a really busy couple of weeks with conference and then obviously the negotiations with Royal Mail. It's hard to know where to start, actually, Terry, but I'm going to start with the communication from Royal Mail last night. I think it was in written form, and also there was a video from Ricky McCauley, which was quite humorously, I think, clearly scripted, actually. And the bit that struck me as funny was in this clearly scripted video, they said that you'd walked out the talk. So they clearly decided you were going to walk out of the talks before the talks had even started. I don't know if you want to give a bit of a response to that, mate.
Yeah, I will. And also, Chris, if during this I've got a window open here, you can hear outside noise, let me know and I'll shut the window. I don't want to spoil it for people. But Ricky's video that he put out, Ricky McCauley. I mean, there's a couple of things, really. One of the things that's sort of amused me at the start, although this is a very serious issue, is you may remember I made that sort of comment about more strings than Thunderbirds. And some very creative people or person started to do some cartoons about that. And Ricky McCauley and other members of the Royal Mail hierarchy were being depicted as characters from that show, Thunderbirds. And I thought when I was listening to Ricky last night, I thought it's important to remember that if ever you're watching things like Thunderbirds, of course, it's not the puppets that are talking. It's somebody else's words, isn't it? It's someone else's voice. And that's what struck me really about Ricky's video last night, because it was clearly scripted. You know, you could see Ricky McCauley was reading it. So it's probably been produced by their comm teams who really think they've upped their game and they can significantly block out us getting the message to our members or confuse that message. And I just think that's what shows through. It just resonates through. It's not someone just talking about the subject matter. And also, I think, a bit disappointingly, he was economic with the truth, because the CW didn't walk out of those talks. What we was not prepared to talk about is that we can only have a pay deal, our members can only have a pay deal, much deserved pay deal, if we attach change to it. And if we agree things that would require months of negotiation. So it absolutely defies this issue about they want to give you a pay rise now, they know you're hurting. It's just nonsense. And it amazes me how they underestimate the intelligence of our members and that they can't see through that. So in terms of a change, you know, we are dealing with that through the Pathway to Change agreement, which all our members voted on, by the way. And there's protections and mutual interest commitments within that agreement, covering all the aspects of change, and certainly the aspects of change they're trying to almost get a nod through by bribing us on a potential pay deal. And our members know that because they voted on that agreement. So the pay is totally separate. So we have made it crystal clear. We submitted our claim, submitted it back in February, by the way. If you want to consider their words about we really do want to give you a quick pay deal, we didn't have a response for nearly 2 months on that because our pay was due, or pay review was due on the 1st of April. And so we've made it clear to everybody we're committed to our Pathway to Change agreement, which deals with all the change aspects. We're not in disagreement over that, and I'll touch on some of that a bit later, how much work we've done on that as a CWU. And we were there to talk about a pay deal, a straight 1-year pay deal, inflation-based pay deal, and get it as quickly done as quickly as possible. Because there's no question that our members are out there, like everyone else, and really being tested with the current cost of living crisis, and they need it now. That's seriously. I mean, we had people at conference talking about that where they've had members that have pulled out of their pension scheme to make ends meet. So the way they speak, as if postal workers are running around pockets full of gold, can cope with this quite easily. You're paid 40% more than anyone else doing a similar job. Really insulting, horrible stuff. Our rate of pay has been negotiated over years with agreements, by the way, with the employer all the way through. And then to come back and attack that and almost say to people, you're lucky, it just demonstrates they're not genuine, either in their reporting back, as it happens, or genuine in their desire to give people a pay deal. Because by connecting other stuff to it and trying to bribe people, they know that ain't going to work. They know we're not going to accept that. They know those things are proper to quite lengthy negotiations. So they're deliberately not offering our people anything, because there's nothing up front at all. And they made it crystal clear when we arrived in those talks. We said here, we're not here to talk about the change, are we? That's a different meeting. We're here to talk about the pay claim and talk about pay. And they've made it crystal clear there is absolutely nothing for our members, no pay rise whatsoever, after all that they've done in the past year or so and continue to do. There is no pay rise whatsoever unless your union sign up to changes which are proper to a different agreement and different negotiations. But they're also changes, if we was to just sign up to them, in our opinion, they're hugely damaging to our members and their way of life, and hugely damaging to this great public service in terms of its capability. So, they know that we can't do that deal. And they know that we're there just to talk about pay. Well, when they refused, and basically we sat down as adults on the second day, I thought as adults, and was honest with the two negotiating teams, and both of us agreed that we had nowhere else to go yesterday, unless the board changed their position on the remit, or unless we swallow and say we're going to accept all those changes, then there was nowhere else to go. So, we could have sat in that room all yesterday afternoon and evening. We could have sat in there all day today. But that's just for optics. That's just for communication purposes. And it's nonsense. And our members knows it's nonsense. So if there's no movement, I've got to be honest with you, I'd rather spend my time speaking to the members and getting ourselves organised for what seems like at this moment in time, and obviously we've got another 4 weeks, seems like we are going to have to ballot our members and protest, and if necessary, take industrial action. And if they don't want to, if there's no change, if they won't talk to us unless it's pay with strings, then that's where I'll be, talking to our activists and members.
Thanks, Terry. That's brilliant. You've been clear, and the union's been absolutely clear that the position of the CWU is we want a no strings attached clean pay deal for our members this year. Obviously, Royal Mail have they've absolutely muddied the waters by coming in and saying that is not on their position, and any sort of pay must be delivered on the back of a raft of other things. Obviously, your position, the union's position, isn't going to change. That's what it is. And that is where you've been clear. That's where the dispute is, on pay, not on the agenda for growth, not on our agreements. Our dispute is on pay. But I wondered if you could give some details to the members from the negotiations, from their communications, and some of the things that they are seeking to change in order to put any form of pay deal on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yes, I will. I'll elaborate on that, but I have to make it crystal clear that is separate from our pay. That is separate from this dispute, if you like, this disagreement we've got with them. And the changes that they're talking about, and as I say, they are all issues that are covered by the Pathway to Change agreement. And we've had ongoing talks on that agreement and deployed that agreement since early 2001. That's when we signed that agreement, and that's when all our members voted on it. But I'll give you a flavour, and then I'll move on to what we've actually done as a trade union, because I know how they're going to try and depict us, these that won't listen to reason, these terrible union people representing their members. Well, if that's terrible, I'll wear that as a badge of honour, because that's what we exist for, and that's what our members pay us for and all. So I'll be clear to all the members and anyone listening: an upfront reward for you for everything you've done in the past year, all the change you have delivered, by the way, in unprecedented degrees and in unprecedented circumstances, when you consider all the things we had to put in place for the pandemic, which made life really difficult for you to operate in, really changed the way you work, and which you had to flex and to make that happen, to get the mail to the people, keep the people connected as best we could. Unprecedented levels of people either off with COVID or isolating. Every day you went into work, it changed, etc. You didn't know what you was doing one day to the next. There wasn't enough vans, single van working. We had members going out on buses to get to their first port of delivery. And of course, this is across all of our functions. Incredibly difficult to work like that. And at the same time, delivering change. Remember that big word, change, that they're accusing us of not being sort of signed up to. You did all of that, and it turned around the finances of the company without question. And I believe they go to the market on the 19th of May, and I believe they're going to say that they've been profitable. They're going to say it's in a fundamentally different place than it was in 2019. Of course, there's headwinds, like the rest of the world has got headwinds, but you have to adjust your plan for that, is my opinion. But we're certainly in a better place. So much so, they were so delighted with how everyone was putting in a shift and everyone was certainly making unprecedented effort, that in November, as you know, they awarded shareholders not only a return on their shares, but also a bonus as well, if you like. No strings attached to that, just the board looking after the community that they mix in, the shareholders, etc. And that was paid out. Over £400 million was paid out in January to shareholders. Now, I know some of our members are shareholders, but you know what we're talking about, the big ticket shareholders. They certainly didn't. Our people didn't get anywhere near £400 million. So the biggest chunk of that would have gone outside of the organisation. And for that and that marvellous turnaround of the company, for all of that work, all of the work we did on culture, etc., for all of that, they're offering you nothing. What they're offering, or what they've said to us, which we've rejected out of hand because we only want to talk about pay, they're saying they can, if we agree to the changes, and I'll touch on them in a minute, if we agree to them up front, then you can have 2%. And when they're deployed, them changes, you can have another 1.5%. So that's the pay bit. There's so 3.5%, which is nowhere near enough to reward our members for what they've done and protect them against this cost of living crisis. And everyone knows, the inflation and where it is. So absolutely no effort to reward our people, but equally to protect them through the cost of living crisis. Their people, their employees, the ones they allegedly love so much. And they'll tell you that on Workplace, how brilliant you've been. You've been fantastic. But you get absolutely nothing if you, unless your trade union signs up to these changes. And these changes are things like flexible working, which translate their interpretation that really is annualised hours. So longs and shorts right across the year, whatever you're doing, annualised hours, total flexibility. They're talking about, and they're badging it, this is where they're disingenuous. They're badging it under the green agenda, which we're hugely supportive of, on the basis of taking out planes in our network, in our pipeline, and basically set up in a pipeline very similar to what Rico Back wanted to do. Well, exactly the same, really. So they sacked him and they've blown the dust off of his proposals. Now maybe they bring him back. But exactly the same, just make everything later. So their answer in a 24/7 world that we agreed to in our agreement, 7 till 7, be the delivery company of choice, not just for parcels, but for all the new products and service they were going to bring in as well. Nothing. They hadn't brought anything in. They got the test kits and they can hold that up. We had new products while they lasted, but it wasn't them. We was just asked to do it, wasn't we? So their answer to it is to make everything later in the day, which means you narrow the window of delivery as well, by the way, for customers long term, when all of our competitors are out on the street far earlier in the day. but it also means you drag the letters with it. So that means all of our members starting later, working later, right across however many, 190,000 people, 100,000 people that work on deliveries or whatever it is. All of your lives will be turned upside down as a consequence. They want us to sign up to that. They want to address sick pay, basically. Too many people are off sick. Forget about COVID or isolation or all the serious stuff that's out there. Obviously, they assume that everyone is swinging the lead, and it's costing them too much money. So they want to address that. So that can only mean one thing: they want to pay less, or they don't want to pay out on certain sicknesses. I don't know. We haven't seen it, but again, policy is all dealt with in the Pathway to Change agreement, and they should table it through those discussions. The other thing, of course, is the RD annual, where they're asking the trade union to pull up the ladder on the next generation of postal workers and bring them in on inferior terms and conditions, something covered by a legally binding agreement. But that's what they want to do. And they want us to sign up to that to give you 3.5%. I mean, I'd like to catch myself, and I'm pretty sure our members will be absolutely furious about all that they're trying to bribe them by pushing through issues that they can table in negotiations in our Pathway to Change agreement. Not we'd agree them, but they could table them, and they know that. They know we're not going to agree that. So in my book, if they know we're not going to agree, they know they're not going to give you a pay rise. They've got no intention of giving you a pay rise, and they're certainly not giving you anything up front for what you've done, what you deserve, and what you need to protect you from this cost of living crisis. And I think that is bang out of order. And I think that is worthy of protest. And that is worthy of us standing up and saying, as a membership, as a trade union, you ain't on. That's my belief. So that's what they want to give our members anything, Chris. But as I say, we're not entertaining that. That is not our claim. Issues of change should be dealt with in the Pathway to Change agreement talks. We're still committed to that agreement, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. We're still committed to that agreement. Our claim is for a straight pay deal, no strings pay award, inflation-based pay award that, as I say, rewards our members, makes them feel that they actually were well thought after by their employer, valued, because they are the greatest asset of this company. They are truly valued, and it was recognised the monumental effort they put in the last year. So give them a pay rise. We need a pay rise that's structured in a way that protects our members from the cost of living crisis. We've had trouble keeping people in the job, Chris. It's not as if this is gold dust for all their shouting and hollering. We've been trying to work with them on retention issues and keeping people in the job, etc. This is a really tough job, and it's an aging workforce because new people coming in generally ain't staying because it's so it's a tough job, make no bones about it. And absolutely, without question, there's no argument that someone can put up that our members don't deserve a pay rise for what they've done and don't deserve protection from the cost of living crisis. They've earned that. They've served their nation magnificently. They're key workers, delivered so much change, unprecedented levels of change in unprecedented circumstances because there was a pandemic going on, and this is the thanks you get. No chance. It's a straight pay deal, no strings, inflation-based for our members. It's what they deserve, and I'll tell you now, it's what we will fight for.
Thanks, Terry. I can see from the comments on the stream here live that members are right behind that position as well. I wondered, I want to move into some of the, the positions that the Royal Mail taking in terms of their communications and what we need to do to build towards that. But you touched on, again, separate from the dispute, separate from, this issue we're raising now about pay. You touched on the issue of change and maybe the claim from the company that, we haven't done enough, we need to do more. But I wondered if you had any thoughts on that and any thoughts on the level of change that has been achieved by this union and our membership over recent times.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some notes here about what we've done because it becomes part of the narrative. Equally, I want people to realise beyond our members, Chris, what this union's done, because it's an insult to the trade union, to the leadership, to the executive, to all our senior field officials, all our area, local reps, divisional rep, regional organisations in Parcel Falls, etc. Because change isn't welcome, and our members haven't always responded well to the change. And it's been tough. And our members have voiced their views on that to a lot of our representatives. But we stuck with it because we made an agreement and our members voted on that. That's our democracy. So there shouldn't be any surprise, but we voted on all the things that we've done. And we were determined to deliver, because what they've constantly said about this union is that we make deals and then we don't stick to them. And they're going to try and say that now around this narrative. And it is so bang out of order because it's not true. And let me just refer to my notes I've got here a minute. So we made the agreement in 2021, right? Just at the start of 2021. Here we are now, just over a year later. During that period, we delivered over 1,215 revisions in delivery. 1,215, right? The previous record in a year for revisions was 130. So we absolutely smashed that out of the park. We committed to doing a revision in all of our offices, and we did in delivery. There was some problems. There was problems with structural, and don't forget we were doing it from a standing start. And what I mean by that is we didn't have time to train our reps or the local managers on how to do those revisions. And we hadn't had revisions in some of them offices for about 7 years. But we made that commitment in that deal and we followed it through. So some worked and some didn't. Well, you don't need the brains of Lloyd George to work out that was going to be choppy, because people hadn't done, they hadn't done revisions, how you do a revision. We hadn't had time. We didn't have a run into it. We had to do it from a standing start. So that makes it an even more incredible piece of work that's been done. And by the way, no other CEO or no other leadership at a company can put a claim on the amount of change that was done there. That was delivered. I tell you now, they should be coming around shaking your hand, offering our people other things for what they delivered, as well as delivering to the nation during a pandemic. Equally, in fleet, in processing, in distribution, in network, revisions in all of those functions as well, completely in all of those functions. Deployed more automation than we've ever deployed in a year, up to about 50%. Never ever reached those levels of deployment of automation. That was done during this year. This is the trade union that won't work with management, that won't honour an agreement. Absolute disgrace what they're saying. What we are is a trade union that don't take any old nonsense, and we defend ourselves when you're out of order. That's what we do. But when we make an agreement and shake hands, touch hands, we stick to that agreement. And that's why we're still sticking to the pathway to change agreement. And that's where change should be dealt with, via proper negotiations, not trying to use it to circumvent that, to slip something in you want desperately by bribing our people, trying to bribe them on a poxy 3.5% pay rise. Parcel Falls, dear to my heart, Parcel Falls, was a mess, a total mess. Why was it a mess? Because of a system called Rex, a system that management pushed. Management invested the money in, and it drove the quality of service, the jewel in the crown in Parcel Falls, through the floor. During the course of this year, we got rid of that. And I tell you now, the quality and service in Parcel Falls is back up to levels better than anywhere else in the parcels, back up into the late 90s, 98% or whatever on quality of service. Fantastic, absolute foundation for the future of Parcel Falls. We have turned that business round in a year. And David Robertson and the regional organisers and all the reps and the members have done that. But they were held back, not by the CWU, by investments made by managers who then refused to accept that it wasn't working. Sounds a bit like Horizon, doesn't it? But just not as serious, unfortunately. But it was serious to Parcel Falls because it really affected their performance. To turn that round in the amount of months is another incredible achievement, and certainly is not a trade union that's not prepared to work and honour agreements. In 2021, listen to this, 48 joint statements produced, joint statements on progressive issues, 48 in 2001, another 37 already in 2002. This is not the union holding back on an agreement. I've already mentioned culture. Look at the culture results, the surveys. Go and ask, get the managers on the videos, the people who are dealing with culture, the questionnaires, and see whether this trade union hasn't worked with those people all the way through, hasn't honoured what we said we would do. Yes, we have. So to try and use this situation now to suddenly paint this union black is out of order. We are not. We are the progressive force. I'll tell you other stories. We've written to them on trials, on 7-day working, covering Sundays, everything else, all right, across the 7 days, inventive duty patterns, moving forward, the promises we made in a pathway to change agreement. Mark Bolsh has done that on deliveries, has written to the business, etc. No response. In December last year, we knew the pipeline talks were fading away. Where were they? They drifted away from it. Too busy sacking each other and getting rid of senior managers. We pushed for a meeting in January. We knew it was urgent. We needed to move into those talks. They tried to cancel that meeting because they were, what do they call it, releasing Akim Dunwald. In our parlance, we'll say sacked Akim Dunwald. So we want to cancel the meeting. No, we insisted on the meeting. We had a full team. They had a full team out. And we absolutely, the experts on the CW side, absolutely tore that plan, a new one. And they said to us, these are all valid points, we'll get back to you. We ain't seen them since. On productivity, we've been pushing the productivity debate. We've got a productivity measure. We've been saying for a long time about getting a productivity scheme in place to help that along. Yes, above and beyond, but there's lots of places where for whatever reason they're lower down. You still got to incentivise those people in progress. We've been the advocates of doing something on that. Again, nothing, not come back to us on these issues. So we're the honourable ones. We're the ones that are the progressive force in Royal Mail. They've been too busy the last few months trying to sort out their managerial headcount. And by the way, they've got a ballot going on now with uniting that, so they ain't done that too well either, have they? They've got that going on in the middle of this. And then they want to blame us, or they suddenly want to sit down and issues they've been avoiding us on, they now expect us to just sign up on the worst case scenario just so as we can get 3.5% for our members. Our members are too proud. Our members are too savvy. They know what's going on here. They know they deserve a straight pay deal, and they know change should be dealt with within the context of the pathway to change agreement. And I'll tell you how they know, because they voted on it. And they know that's where that should be dealt with. If there's disagreements when we're progressing those issues in pathway to change, then we've got a dispute resolution process. This is a separate issue. This pay deal this year was not covered by that agreement. The two previous ones were, but were not covered. This is a straight pay claim, and we've made it. And it's a straight pay deal, no strings, inflation-based, give our members what they deserve, protect them from the cost of living crisis. And we won't shift from that position.
Thank you, Terry. That's absolutely spot on. And I think the members, I can see again, are back in that position you've set out. And one of the things we've always said as a union is, particularly when it comes to strike ballots and mobilising our members, is there's nothing better than getting in front of people in the workplace, having a discussion, setting out the union's arguments and winning people over. And that will never, ever change. One of the things we've ventured into in more recent times, obviously, is social media. Here we are now live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter to thousands of people. And we've used that well, but we've also acknowledged, the downsides of that, with sometimes you're bloody hell, you're going at it and the members can still find a reason to dig you out. But that is social media. What was interesting in maybe the last sort of 18 months is Royal Mail have clearly invested a lot of money, a lot of staff, a lot of time, a lot of resource into Facebook Workplace. And now I think they're starting to see some of that other side of it. Whilst, things are fine and they're ticking over, it's, that's brilliant, Simon, that's brilliant, Ricky, or whatever. Now they're starting to, we should be very proud of that. I think our members are starting to challenge them and carry the union's messages across their platforms. And we'll continue to do that. But one of the things we're getting from that is, and amongst some humorous stuff like the scripted videos, we're getting some we're getting some little bits of information and little like responses. So, for instance, one of the things I wanted to put to you is I saw a meme actually earlier on from one of the branches, maybe, or one of the divisions. But there was a question asked, and it was by like a manager I saw, and he was like, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, kind of sucking up to Simon Thompson and saying like, why don't the union understand X, Y, Z, the rise in fuel crisis, etc., all that, sort of rubbish, which you've put straight many a time. But he asked for how much it costs Royal Mail to put 1% on a pay deal, and Simon Thompson came straight back and said it costs us £42 million. Now, in mine or your money, Terry, or in our members' money, that's a bloody hell of a wedge of money, and we recognise that. But that also puts into context the fact that they have chosen not to put anything on the table. 1% would have cost them 40 million, 2% 80, so on. But they've given shareholders 400 million. They've made a conscious choice not to go 400 million to our members, a 10% pay rise, but to give it to the shareholders. But not even the 10% argument, not 5, not 4, not 3, not even 1% unconditionally. What does that say about the business? And also your thoughts on the workplace issue?
I think what it says about the business is the priorities, isn't it? And we're a privatised business. They're going to want to make profit, and you've got shareholders who want their bit and everything else. I think with the pathway to change, we was in a really strong position to position the future of the industry and literally the pathway we were taking, the trajectory, if you like. We was in a strong position to explain that to shareholders and to the board, and for them to accept that this is a long road. You're turning around and reinventing over 500 years old industry. So you ain't no good coming in here for a quick killing. You know what I mean? If you're looking at your medium and long term investments, then we're the people, and plus we have the brand, which is very important to people. And plus, I think Royal Mail can be a vehicle for good on the green agenda. And I'm not talking about getting rid of planes. That don't make you have a green agenda because I'm getting rid of a couple of planes. You're telling me shareholders and board members, no one's going to get on a plane again because of the green agenda. Of course it don't. You're still going to have aviation, but they're modernising planes and jets to make them more greener. So you've got to be serious about it. But in terms of our whole operation, Royal Mail are driving that. I mean, one of the points I missed off, Chris, was the other point from the union in terms of show our intention and our commitment to that agreement. Is we just, it was only 5-6 weeks ago, we had a major policy forum in Liverpool, great expense to the trade union, where we debated all the issues about how we take forward the pathway to change agreement, how we map out these things like the green agenda, produced a 90-page document on policy and ideas, which we've given to the employer as well. So, that's what I'm saying. We're not a union that's trying to renege on an agreement, or we're not a union that doesn't understand that you've got to reinvent this industry. But in terms of where they are now, this is what's so frustrating. Everyone's understood that. We've touched hands. It's about honour. Everyone knows about it, and we've got to do it. Headwinds come along like we've got now, financial crisis, whatever else they want to lay on top of it, war in Ukraine, everything else, that most people, including politicians, are using as an excuse. But if you've got all them headwinds, and by the way, the fuel ain't such a massive headwind for Royal Mail at the moment because they hedge that. They buy that like a year in advance. So it will be, of course it will be. But it ain't hitting them immediately. But I tell you what, it's hitting our members immediately. It's hitting ordinary people getting to work and things like that immediately. So it's about the language of priorities. And my honest belief is, and anyone can come and argue with me, a shareholder, a board member, not that I suppose they'll choose to, because they're pretty, they're faceless, aren't they? But they can come and argue with it. But to me, when you've agreed a long-term plan and you're in this sort of moment you're in now, you have to readjust that plan to take account of all those headwinds and remain positive about what it's going to deliver medium and long term. And that medium and long term is still there. Are the unions still going to cooperate with change? Well, if we hadn't had this little hiccup we got now, people were in the right place. People had struggled with change, and everyone always does, by the way. And we understand, but people know the business has got to change, whether they like it or they don't like, whether they moan about it when it happens, they know it's got to change. But if it's negotiated change with the trade union and the mutual interest protections are in there, then people will go with it. And that, demonstrating that in the last 12 months with the amount of change that was done, should have given everyone confidence that the medium and long term is still on track, whether that's the green agenda, whether it's new products and services. I mean, I think the thing that's dropped behind in the last year or so hasn't been our commitment, it's been theirs on new products and services. We've not seen anything, have we? We've heard lots of talk about it, but we've not seen anything. The new things we had to deal with wasn't of the making of the Royal Mail board or the Royal Mail CEO or anyone else. It was test kits. It was collecting and delivering test kits that protected a nation, which, had we have followed the Rico Beck plan a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have been in a position to be able to do. So, the fact that this great public service is still relevant has been proven through the last years. So you have to make that adjustment. And instead of putting shareholders at the top of that list in terms of what they get, I think top of the list this year should have been their employees, their greatest asset, the people that delivered the change in finances and the people that protected and enhanced this great brand of Royal Mail and this great public service. They're the people this year who deserve reward. And then we continue the journey, and everyone understands if the company's profitable, then there's always going to be a lump going to shareholders because we're privatised. Now, I don't think it should be. I think it should have been a publicly owned not-for-profit. Personally, I've always believed that, but that's because previously, we also had governments taking chunks of money out of it, and also, but that's what it should have been. It's proved its value. I think my view on that has been strengthened by what's gone on in the past year and through the pandemic, especially. But we are where we are. We're privatised. You're going to have shareholders always holding their hands out. It's probably in the rules of how they run as a business. And it's up to me, it's the employer, it's the Royal Mail board that should have been defending our people. They should have been saying to shareholders, they should have called them in a room and said, this is the score, the plan's still on track, but obviously it's going to take a little bit longer. Now, companies like BA, Chris, this just recently, and I think they're owned by an American company, I think it's their 4th year of losses. I mean, they're still working, they're still operating, they're still out there doing it. So this is just a blip in terms of what they get back, profitability, and what they can give to shareholders in a very long-term plan, which everyone up until now was supporting. Now suddenly they want to rush at the gate. So no, the priority should have been our members, our people, their employees, their greatest asset, not shareholders. And they ain't done themselves any favour in any argument they want to put out now about, well, we can't afford it. People are going to go, well, what about the money you go to shareholders in? Even though some of our members are shareholders, but there's a minimal amount compared. People are going to say that to them. And their narrative is shot straight away, isn't it? Well, we have to. So what about this? And what about all the change we delivered? How can you say the union's not honouring the agreement? That's nothing to do with pay talks. That's in separate set of negotiations, change, etc. On what have we done in the past year? What have the union tried to do with you in this year, etc. All the things we've got, all the letters, we've got all the emails, we've got the narrative. We own the narrative here, and you know why? Because we're on the side of right, and they're out of order, they're wrong, and they're trying to rush, and they're running scared of the board members, by the sound of it, who are running scared of shareholders. And instead of fronting it up and praising and protecting this great public service and the people who work in it, they haven't. They've run to the shareholders and assumed that they can come and dump on our people, and we won't have that.
Spot on, Terry. Terry, we aim for about 45 minutes, so I think we've got about 5-6 minutes left. So I've got 3 questions for you. I want to just put up to summing up. The first one is another thing I want you to respond to in terms of Royal Mail's communications is the message I've seen. I think I've seen the CEO, but also definitely seen Ricky McCauley in his sort of communications talking about the impact that even the threat of industrial action has on customers, and it's, they'll walk away, etc. And I just thought, when you think about that, they jump straight to that without taking any accountability for, after all the things you've said, after the pandemic, after our members being key workers, after keeping communities connected. After all the awards ceremonies, when they've painted our members at heroes, after they give 400 million pound to shareholders, and then after that put nothing on the table in front of you to take back to our members in terms of a no strings pay deal, there's a bit of a cheek from them to jump straight to us talking about industrial action is a problem here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? I mean, what? That's all we've set out to do is take industrial action. It's just nonsense, and it's insulting. Just because, I mean, well, Ricky McCauley ain't talking to the people, is he? He's reading a script of someone else's script, but he's delivering it to very principled, honourable, decent people. People that have been postal workers, most of them, all their lives, and they work hard. They deliver for the public. They've built up great relationships with the public. But when they consider that they're being treated unfairly, they stand up for themselves. And that's principle. That's what people do in their lives. That's like, I mean, in the worst case scenario, what are you saying then? The Ukrainian people shouldn't fight back. They should just swallow it. Of course not. Of course not. You defend yourself, don't you? You've got every right. You've got reason. You've got reason on your side. You've got everything you've put into it. Most of our members, and Royal Mail constantly going on about we've got an ageing workforce, people have done lots and lots of years. They've invested their whole life into this job. Their whole life. You attack us, and what are we meant to say to our members then? Oh, listen, I know it's peanuts. I know they're offering it like 3.5, but don't shout too loud because otherwise it'll wreck the business. And what happens next year then? And what happens the year after? What happens whenever you come under attack? When you think something wrong, you've got to protest. You have to. If you don't, then you're cowards, aren't you? You take on the role of the lackey. You won't stand up to principle, even though there's the potential that you may get, you might take a few in there. But if that's what you have to do and they call it on, well, that's what you have to do. And I think they totally underestimate that our members, their employees, by the way, fellow human beings, I think they totally underestimate the dignity and a sense of principle amongst our people, and certainly the anger that they have massively stepped up in the last year. And now you're saying to them, unless you agree a whole swathe of stuff that actually is proper to other talks, unless you allow us to cherry pick them out and get them in pretty quick, you don't get no pay award. And by the way, when you do, it's only going to be 3.5. We're talking about productivity, and they put numbers around it, but no one's seen that because there's been no negotiations on that, what they would do to people. And they want to come and buy out people's allowances and all this sort of stuff. That's we're just not gonna put up with that. So when you say no, don't protest, and Ricky says, "Oh, we're so frightened of industrial action," well, then you should have made a better offer. You should have done the right thing and rewarded our people, shouldn't you? Otherwise, you're going to have to worry about industrial action because that's what you're going to get.
Thanks, Terry. That's brilliant. So just a final couple of questions then. Firstly, maybe just a minute or so. Obviously, I think, you are right. When we do these sessions and we do any sort of communications, there's a lot of eyes and ears on them. And I'm sure there's some people with vested interest who may be watching the show live or catching up at a later date. What would your message be to the Royal Mail board and senior management at this juncture?
Well, I think, first of all, they are totally detached from a labour-intensive industry with just thousands and thousands of thoroughly decent people that they discuss in their boardroom. And I said the other day they should get lively and get out and get into these offices and see the circumstances that our members are in. Perhaps they should even go and do the job or try and go and do the job. But they pontificate things. But, in my mind, I don't know them. I don't know them from a bar of soap. They've never asked me to go and talk to them. So they sit in a room where, it's easy audience, isn't it? They're all the same. There's no one challenging them and saying, don't make that decision. Oh, really think about it. That could have a really bad impact. They may say they go through all them scenarios. I don't think so. I think they recruit people. The fact that a lot of them sit on 3 or 4 different boards tells you what they are. They're almost like journeymen, aren't they? You know what I mean? They just turn up on 3 or 4 different boards, probably on every one of them. agree things that have a major effect on the people who work for those companies, take their bit of wedge for doing it. Lovely, nice few quid behind them, can do that job until they're 90 if they want. It's easy, isn't it? And I believe it is and all. So when we're not easy, and it is. I think it's an easy job. I think it's easy when you don't put yourself in a position where you really have got to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And I think they're part of the problem. I don't know who's on that board who speaks for the workers. Is there anyone on there who speaks up for the workers? I doubt it. So we can only deal things when things are in front of us. So what would I say to the board? You're out of touch. You're out of touch with the people. You're trying to call this on, and you are massively going to get it, because there is nothing you're going to be able to say to us that's going to make us back off. Our people deserve it. And I think anyone, even in the public eye, any judgment, people will say they deserve it. No different than nurses or other key workers deserve a shout out, not just clapping on doorsteps and banging saucepans, and probably you were a part of that. Our people deserve it, but you have not offered them anything, unless they swallow totally unacceptable change, which shouldn't even be proper to our pay negotiations. You're out of order, you're calling it on, and if you get it, you can call us all the names under the sun. But I tell you now, you will never, ever take away our sense of principle, dignity, and honour, because we've honoured our agreements and we still honour our agreements. It is you, Royal Mail Group, that are breaking those agreements, trying to lift issues out of those agreements and deal with them somewhere else. You're breaking those agreements, and you're also breaking, I think, the moral contract with the people who work for you. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Actually, you should hang your heads. You should have been defending them with shareholders. You should have been readjusting the plan and making sure those people were looked after. Hang your heads. I can only assume you've got no mirrors in your house, because if you look in them, you'll see you're on the side of wrong. We're on the side of right. We're absolutely convinced about that. I'm absolutely, totally convinced that I'm representing our members and that they're behind us and behind this trades union. And as I say, you're calling it on and you're going to get it unless you change your position.
Thanks, Terry. And I mean, just to reaffirm, I think as you're saying that stuff, comments are flooding in saying that, the union's in exactly the right place. So I think you can be absolutely confident that you're speaking on behalf of our members. And that which brings me to my final question, Terry, and most important of all, as always, really, what would your message be to our army of brilliant local reps and members out there?
Well, to everyone, first of all, I am bitterly disappointed that you're being put in this position. I absolutely don't underestimate your intelligence in any way, shape, or form. So you'll listen to me, and listen, I'm just a postman. At the end of the day, I'm a postman, and I'll give you my perspective of it. And you listen to me, and you'll listen to them. You might see things on workplace. You'll work it out. You'll know who's telling the truth, and you'll know the nonsense that's being spoken. You will be threatened probably with your jobs, and we're going to wreck this thing. And we've had that since time immemorial. They've always said that, haven't they? So if they believe that, then why prod us then? Why prod the lion? And that's what they're doing. And every time they've done it, we've reared up. This lion has reared up the CW. We've got a proud history of that. And I really thought this time, with our agreement and the manner of which we've gone about honouring it and deploying it, I thought perhaps we'd enter a different phase. But here we go. When push comes to shove, all the trust agenda, all the culture stuff, all the nice, soft, touchy-feely stuff goes out the window. And the same, at the moment, it would seem, they've just reverted to type, haven't they? The board have reverted to type. They're telling the company what to do. They're telling them what to say us. When we're in pay talks, Chester, we're told, well, unless the board change the remit, we can't talk to you just about straight pay deal. And we go, okay, then, do we both accept that's the end of the conversation? They say, yeah. So we leave. Of course we do. I don't necessarily want to spend the day sitting there talking about anything else with them. We're then accused of walking out the talks. That's the sort of people you're talking about. They're not principled people. They only serve one governor, and that seems to be profit and how much of that they can give to shareholders, not our people. So every single one of you, I wish you well. We're taking on this fight, which is for you. Now, many people accuse their union of selling them out and all this sort of stuff. Well, we ain't doing that, are we? We're standing up for you. We're eyeballing them. We're staring them down and saying, you ain't on. You're bang out of order. And we will not do some deal that sells our members out, either in what we believe they should get and what they need and what they deserve, nor will we give the indignity of you only get that if you sign up to a load of stuff that has not been successfully negotiated, that they can't get through in normal discussions, and they just want to try and use it as a bribe at this moment in time because you are under the cosh, because your pockets are being tested. They see that as an opportunity to them, and that speaks volumes about this caring employer. That's their weakness. They see this as a moment to exploit you because you could be on your uppers in terms of your standard of living. And we say no. We say as a union, we will defend you. We will stand up and fight all the time. You're behind us. I believe you'll be behind us. I know it's unfortunate. I know you have your own worries. No one wants to take strike action. And hopefully we won't. We didn't in our last 3 ballots. And hopefully they'll see sense and we get a deal. And it don't cost you any money in terms of industrial action. But if we have to have it, then we have to have it, because you just cannot allow this to be done to you. You deserve far better. You're terrific people. You've done a magnificent job in the last year, and you deserve honouring for that and not being treated the way you're treated now. Get behind your trade union. Talk to anyone next to you. And if ballot papers, when we get ballot papers out, if that's what we had to do, you make sure you support the trade union, because no one else, it is obvious from these proposals, no one else is going to look at you.
Thank you, Terry. That's brilliant. Firstly, thank you to you for giving up nearly an hour of your time. I know you've been busy with the talks and the executive and laying out the strategy, so we really do appreciate it. Moreover, from both Terry and myself, thank you to everyone who's joined us this afternoon and who's watching on catch up as well. Please take those messages, as Terry says, take them back into the workplace. And building on this session, because obviously we thought it was a good idea to do an interview style to flesh everything out this afternoon. But Monday, we're back to what you love best, I think, which is you having control of the session. So Monday evening, we haven't set a time yet, but Terry will be back taking your questions. No scripts, no prompts or anything like that. Terry will take your questions, the good ones, the bad ones, the challenging ones, anything you want to put out there. We'll take them and we'll deal with them. So please join us Monday. Please share this video and get the message out there and get behind the union. Take it easy.